Welcome back to Bazooka Kickboxing. Today, we're back on the bag. Still in lockdown, so we need to improve our technique off of our big, old, trusted friend, the heavy bag. Now, what we're gonna work on today, last time on our bag episode, we really focused on the jab and how to use the jab effectively. Today, we're gonna use the bag to set up our rear hand, our power hand. So, whether you're southpaw or orthodox, you put the power side behind you. Now, just like our first video on the jab, a good effective rear hand comes from angles and changes of levels. If I'm only throwing the same right hand at the same path, at the same hand position, it becomes predictable to parry. So this is where you want to change the angles. So to throw an effective right hand, I like to throw vertical shots with my thumb up. If my opponent's guarded here, a horizontal punch might be blocked, but if I jam a nice vertical punch down the middle, right, boom, I can get a good power shot. Set, boom, vertical shot down the middle. Now, a lot of times when you throw a right hand, you get like a nice inside parry. So then again, an effective change by just looping my shot in a nice tight overhand, not a big looping overhand, but in a nice tight overhand, it changes the angle and it'll get right behind my opponent's ear. So small changes can get good results. So let's just start round one, nice and relaxed. You're gonna throw the punch with full extension. I don't wanna see right hands with a bent arm. I'm looking for full extension and right back. Opposite hand nice and tight. If my hand is here, you just gotta be prepared to move your head. You can keep a nice high guard. Just remember it's about moving your head and creating angles. So round one, we're gonna alternate between the three different angle changes. Vertical, horizontal, slight overhand. Okay, this is just gonna warm up our shoulders. You can use slight movement, but not too much, all right? Vertical, horizontal, cut down. Remember, I don't want you smacking the bag. Smacking the bag just might encourage you to have a bent arm. I'm looking for snapping right hands. It's a warm-up, not about power. Okay? Movement. And it's important to keep that head moving, right? Especially if I want to land a good power right hand, right? I'm going to slip my head to the right, which puts weight on my rear foot, which lets me get that power shot, okay? So when I'm looking for a nice strong right hand, weight goes on my rear foot, and now I could jam, okay? Vertical, horizontal. So those are singles, or I can do doubles, sometimes even triples. Nice and long. Even in this round, you can introduce some of the body punches as well. Usually when I like to attack the body, I like to go horizontal. And remember, a lot of times that right hand to the body isn't about sitting down like we see. It's about getting up on that back foot, bringing my weight forward so I can drive my two knuckles in the solar plexus of my opponent. So weight. Now that you got the angle changes, the vertical, the horizontals, and the overhands, now it's time to make sure, one, we encourage the level change like I just mentioned. So hit that body is just gonna get my opponent to go down, which is gonna open up the headshot. So level changing is just gonna make my right hand more effective. But now, to change it up a little bit, we need to kind of create angles. If I'm staying stationary, matched with my opponent, and our forearms are in the same line, it's very easy for him to block. So I need to make sure, even these subtle angles, where I can get my hands in between my opponent's center line, I'm just gonna be able to get my right hand a little bit more effectively down the middle. Now, in order to get that reaction as well, you need to mix feints and head movement as well. So I don't wanna just sit here and throw this shot. By using head movement, right, if you see my shoulder position, if I just sit here and throw, I don't get that opportunity to load up my right hand. So by seeing me feinting here, this little feint here put me more narrow center line to now get a nice drive on my rear hand. Okay, so I'm using my feinting, set up, boom, to get that nice rear hand. Subtle angles. I don't need huge angles. So if I'm lined up on my back, I don't need you to step here to throw it. That's a little too much. You'll see some guys 1, 2 step out and angle. That's nice too. That big angle will get you there, but sometimes those big movement patterns are very predictable, where instead of going 1, 2, step out, 2, or 1, 2, step out, 2, something simple, boom. That small little shuffled angle step, very little is just enough to drive my hand. I just need my hand to go down center line, okay? So this round here, we're using, boom, angled shuffle steps and subtle movements. But the key is make sure you go both directions. If I'm circling this way, I'm looking right down the middle. Sometimes if I'm circling to the right, that's when I look for that overhand shot behind the ear. So just be understanding of where you're trying to throw. Yes, this is a straight line bag, but you do need to visualize where the nose is, the chin, and the temples as well, and the body shot. So you have to visualize an opponent on this bag. So when I'm sitting here, I might, boom, head off center line, straight down the middle, body, head. Okay? I need to know where to precisely place my knuckles. Okay, round 2, using feinting, a little bit of movement, subtle movement to get the power shot. Keep changing the angles and levels. Round 2. So round 3 is where the creativity of this bag work and this workout comes into play. You can't just throw a single rear power hand. Like I said, angle changes help. Subtle movement helps. But in order to set it up more effectively, you need to have a good jab. You can't just rely on one big power punch. So using that feinting and using those jabs to be able to attack. I did mention movement being an effective way of landing the rear hand. But you have to master that step. If I just step over, and my opponent sees that and he reads that, but if I'm putting jabs and straight punches in his face, and then I create that angle, it's more masked, and it's harder for my opponent to see. So you're gonna use the jab and the feints to kind of block, boom, and set up those big power shots, okay? So round 3, be creative with the way you use your jab. It should have tempo, rhythm, and angle changes, just like your rear hand. Subtle changes. Don't make big dramatic changes. Wide punches. Small loops, small movement changes, okay? Let's go, round 3, set it up with a jab. There, we just used our jab to be able to set up a more effective rear hand. Good knuckle placement and good strategy, okay? Good setup. But when you throw it, remember, it's all about solid basics. It's important to be able to use masks, traps, hand frames, distance control, head movement, but ultimately, good technique is gonna make the strike very effective. Just remember, when throwing it, I can't throw an effective rear hand if my shoulders are too square. There's no power. I need to have more of what I call that bow and arrow, narrowing my center line. I need to have my rear weapon, which is the weapon I'm trying to land, loaded. Slingshot, bow and arrow, it's here. So now from here, I'm in a loaded position to be able to attack. If my shoulders are square, my hips are square, which means I can't generate power from the floor, okay? So I'm gonna put my lead side in front of me, loaded weapon. When I throw my attack, I'm gonna push off my rear, pivot my rear hip, and now I'm gonna get a nice strong rear hand that's come from the ground, used rotation, and everything with power, okay? Just remember, you can change the elbow positioning, but the standard textbook way, I'm keeping my elbow nice and down, turning over last second, okay? Vertical punch, my elbow stays in the whole time. When I want to throw that slight overhand, very slight, but the good power's coming from the ground and that pivot in the hip and the rear foot. Okay? Remember, good power is going to get you the knockout. Mixed with those subtle angle changes is going to really show how good of a right hand you got. Okay? Set it up is the key, and when you do land it with good power and good biomechanics. All right? We're going to see you next week here at Bazooka Kickboxing. Keep practicing. Watch the technical series. Pay attention to the podcast, and we'll see you next time.